Hi, my name is John Paul Gomez, and I'll be teaching you today how the game of chess is played. By a show of hands, how many of you know how to play chess? That's great. A lot of people think that chess is a very complicated game to play. However, it's a game that is very strategic, and one just needs to learn the 4 basic steps of the game, and one will be able to execute an effective chess game. I started playing the game of chess at the age of 7. My father taught me how to play. Now, the first thing that one needs to know in chess is how to ID these pieces, how to set up the pieces, how each piece functions, and how to develop a strategy to play the game. Now, the first thing I want to do, obviously, is to show you how the pieces are set up. Now, the chess pieces are set up to sit on what's called a chessboard. A chessboard is comprised of 64 squares, black and white squares. Obviously, you have white and black pieces as well. So the first piece I want to introduce to you is what we call the pawn. There are 8 pawns for each player. The white player has 8 pawns and the black player has 8 pawns. Now, the way the pawn functions is that the pawn moves straight forward and it captures diagonally. For instance, the pawn sits on a base. They all sit on the same line. So when a pawn moves, if it's the first time the pawn is moving, it can move either 2 squares or 1 square. The only time the pawn is allowed to move 2 squares forward is when it's on base. After the first move, the pawn is only allowed to move 1 square going forward, and when it takes an opponent's pawn, for instance, it can only take it diagonally. So that's how the pawn functions. And then the next piece I'm going to introduce to you is what we call the rook. The rook moves straight forward, and it can move 1 to 7 squares. Now, in order for the rook to move forward, it has to have an opening. For instance, before the white rook will be able to move, the pawn has to move away. So your first move, for instance, could be this move, and then if this pawn was off the way, then the rook can move 1 up to 7 squares, but it can't jump a piece. So a rook can move from the stand here and come all the way over here to take another piece. So that's how the rook functions. And also it can move horizontally or vertically and horizontally. The next piece I'm going to introduce to you is what's called the knight. The knight is the only piece on the chessboard that's allowed to jump other pieces. For instance, a knight doesn't have to have an opening to be able to move. So the knight can stand here right on base, and it moves on an L shape. So it goes, you can count the squares, 1, 2 square, and then there has to be a turn. You can either turn left or turn right, but it's always an L shape, the way the knight moves. The third piece I'm going to introduce to you is what we call the bishop. Now, the bishop moves diagonally. It moves diagonally, and it can't jump a piece. There has to be an opening for the bishop to move. So, there's a white bishop and a black bishop. The white bishop that moves on the white square has to move also diagonally on the white squares. And the next piece I'm going to introduce to you is the queen. The queen is considered the most powerful piece on the board. Now, the reason for that is because the way the queen moves, it encumbers the function of the rook and the bishop. So both the functions of these pieces the queen can execute. And the last piece, but not the least, obviously, is the king. The king is considered the most valuable piece on a chessboard. Now, the reason being is the purpose of the game is really to capture your opponent's king. Once the opponent's king is captured, that's the end of the game. You've executed a successful game of chess. So now, once you know how to identify the pieces, how the pieces are placed on the board, and how each piece moves, the final step will be the fourth step, to execute an effective game of chess. So I'm gonna do that now. So I'm playing white. I'm gonna have a ghost player. Now let's say my first move is pawn 2 squares forward. The opponent mimics the same move. Now I'm strategizing to capture his king. I move my queen diagonally, just like the function of a bishop, and sits here, threatening his pawn. Now let's say, for instance, if he moves his knight on the L shape over here, then I can bring my bishop right here, which secures my queen to take the pawn. And if he moves here, I can just go take that piece, checkmate. Black king is in check and mate, because it can't take my queen because the queen is protected by the bishop, and it can't move here because it's threatened by the king. So basically, that's how you execute a chess game. So 1, I've showed you how to ID the pieces, and 2, I've showed you how each piece functions, and 3, how to actually execute and end the game. Thank you very much.